Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share something a little different, something that's been on my mind for a while now. I spent the vast majority of my life acting as a human mirror, carefully adjusting my reflection to show people exactly what I thought they wanted to see. My name is Margaret. I am 78 years old, and I am here to tell you that the exhaustion of trying to be universally liked is a heavy coat that I wore for decades before I finally had the courage to take it off. It is a strange tragedy to be the most popular woman in the room, yet feel completely invisible because not a single soul knows who you actually are. I want to talk about the addiction of approval because that is exactly what it is. It started when I was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, when I learned that being quiet and agreeable earned me a smile from my mother, while being loud or opinionated earned me a frown. I learned very early on that love was something you purchased with compliance. I carried that currency into my adulthood like a wallet full of counterfeit money. In my 20s and 30s, I was a social chameleon of the highest order. I could walk into a room full of intellectuals, and suddenly I was serious and literary. I could walk into a room of rowdy drinkers, and suddenly I was the fun, easygoing girl who laughed at every joke. I wasn't living my life. I was performing it. I had an intuitive radar for what people needed me to be, and I would contort my personality into pretzel shapes to fit into the small boxes they offered me. The most dangerous part of this performance is that after a while, you forget that you are acting. I remember a specific dinner party in 1984. I was hosting. Of course, because hosting was a way to control the environment and ensure everyone was happy. I had spent 3 days preparing the food, ironing the napkins, and obsessing over the playlist. We were sitting around the table, and the conversation turned to politics, as it often did. A man at the table, a friend of my husband's, started spouting these terrible, callous opinions about the poor, opinions that went against everything I secretly believed in my heart. And do you know what I did? I poured him more wine. I smiled. I nodded. I even made a small agreeing noise because I didn't want to create tension. I didn't want to be difficult. I betrayed my own soul to keep the peace at a dinner party. And later that night, as I scraped the plates into the garbage, I felt a physical wave of nausea that had nothing to do with the food. I was sick with myself. I lived in a constant state of low-grade anxiety, terrified that if I slipped up, if I showed a crack in the veneer, people would leave. I thought that being liked was the same thing as being safe. I said yes to committees I didn't want to join. I said yes to vacations I couldn't afford. I said yes to favors that drained my energy, leaving me nothing for my own family. I was the woman everyone described as so nice and so reliable, but inside I was harboring a deep, simmering resentment. I resented them for asking so much of me, even though I was the one teaching them that I had no boundaries. I was angry at the world for taking advantage of me, failing to see that I was the one handing them the scissors to cut pieces off of me. The turning point didn't come with a bang, but with a slow, creeping realization in my late 60s. My husband had passed, my children were grown, and I found myself with a lot of time to think. I looked at my address book, filled with names of people I had collected over the years, and I asked myself a terrifying question. How many of these people would I actually call if I was in trouble? The answer was a single digit. I realized that I had spent 40 years cultivating a garden of weeds shallow, relationships based on my ability to be convenient for them. I had 100 friends who liked Margaret the hostess, Margaret the listener, Margaret the agreeable. But they didn't know Margaret the woman who loved obscure poetry, or Margaret who had a sharp temper, or Margaret who was tired of pretending everything was fine. I decided to run an experiment. It was a small rebellion at first. I started saying no. I remember the first time I did it. A woman from the neighborhood association called me, assuming I would organize the annual bake sale, as I had done for a decade. My heart started hammering in my chest, that old familiar panic of disappointing someone. But I took a deep breath and said, No, Helen, I won't be doing that this year. I'm going to spend that weekend reading. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line, followed by a cool, "Oh, well, all right then." She hung up, and the sky didn't fall. The earth didn't open up and swallow me. I sat in my kitchen and felt a rush of adrenaline that was better than any drug. I had reclaimed a piece of my time. As I got bolder, I started showing my true colors in conversation. I stopped laughing at jokes that weren't funny. I stopped nodding when I disagreed. I started wearing comfortable clothes instead of the restrictive, fashionable things I thought I should wear. And a fascinating thing happened. I started losing friends. The people who only liked me for my compliance slowly drifted away. They stopped calling when they realized I was no longer a reliable source of validation for them. And at first, it was painful. It felt like failure. I thought, see, I was right. If I stop performing, nobody will love me. But then, the second part of the miracle happened. The space that those people left behind was slowly filled by new people, or deepened by the few old friends who actually stuck around. These were people who liked the prickly, honest, real version of me. I met a woman at the library who I argued with for an hour about a book we had both read, and we became inseparable because our friendship was based on mutual respect, not mutual politeness. I realized that by trying to be liked by everyone, I had made it impossible to be deeply loved by anyone. You cannot love a facade. You cannot connect with a mask. To be truly loved, you have to risk being disliked. There is a tremendous freedom that comes with age, a loosening of the grip of public opinion. You realize that most people aren't thinking about you at all. They are thinking about themselves and what you can do for them. When you stop doing things for them, they move on, and that is not a tragedy. It is a liberation. I look back at the energy I wasted worrying about what the neighbors thought, what the church ladies thought, what my distant cousins thought. I want to gather that energy up and give it back to my younger self. I want to tell her to use it to paint, to write, to sleep, to dance, to do anything other than curate an image for an audience that isn't even paying attention. I am 78 years old, and I am certainly not universally liked anymore. There are people who think I am stubborn. There are people who think I am too opinionated. There are people who probably think I've become a difficult old woman. And I wear those labels with pride. Because being difficult usually just means you are a woman who has finally decided to honor her own needs. I have fewer friends now, but the ones I have are real. We talk about real things. We share our fears and our failures without judgment. I don't have to perform for them. I can just be. If you are listening to this and you are exhausted, if you feel that tightness in your chest when you smile at a party, if you are saying yes when every fiber of your being is screaming, "No, please stop," you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are not responsible for everyone else's happiness. The desire to be liked is a cage, and the door is wide open. You just have to walk out. It is scary to step into the light of your own authenticity, to risk the disapproval of the crowd, but I promise you, the air is so much cleaner out here. Don't wait until you're 78 to introduce yourself to the world. Do it now. Be real. Be messy. Be complicated. And let the people who don't like it walk away, so you can finally find the ones who do.